time. It's
The
just
hour
that-
of 7:30 having arrived. Water Quality Committee will come to order.
Wow.
How's
Was
that?
that you?
It works.
I've been watching the Roosevelt thing on Channel 2. Carrying the big stick.
Too bad we can't watch it tonight.
I know.
Well, you can. It starts again at 10 o'clock.
I know, but I'm not going to
really?
be up that
Yes,
long.
good.
8 to 10 and 10 to 12.
If we get out of here in
It
time.
is good.
That's if the meeting's over.
Oh, it will be.
I'm not going to be there though, by that time.
All right, meeting of the Water Quality Management Committee, Thursday, September 18th. First item on the agenda is George Hoyfelder, a former member of this committee, who is also the nationally recognized expert on alternative and innovative septic systems, where he operates the famous, world-famous test center up at the MMR.
Okay.
That being one of our top half a dozen priorities in terms of alternatives, we thought it was high time to have George come back here and tell us what the state of the art is
Oh, thank you.
and what we
Oh,
should
they
know.
broke your microphone. What do I do now? Oh, there it is. Nope, there it isn't.
Okay,
Oh,
we do have another one over here.
No,
On the
this
table.
this
You
will
can
be
have the one
fine.
at the
I hate
table,
to be
walk around
tethered because the way I walk around.
Oh,
but-
okay.
So she asked me to give you an update, one of, in general, what's happening with alternative septic systems, the state of the art. The second thing I'd like to talk about is what we're doing with some 208 money that was given to us by the commission, and also that we've got some support from DEP under a 319 program. And the final thing is sort of a brief pan view of what's happening with the Falmouth Eco Toilet project. So, go right ahead. So, the present activity at the test center, I don't know what's happened in the economy, but it looks like it's picked up. We're actively now testing 6 technologies that are going through standardized testing and purporting to remove nitrogen from wastewater. We're testing one technology purporting to remove phosphorus. That's been with us a couple of years and is now in the piloting phase of the DEP approval. And then we're continuing to do research on pharmaceutical and personal care product removal. We have 3 projects ongoing with shallow drain field systems, and we're now looking at the effects of different soil types on the removal, because we have sort of 3 dominant soil types on Cape Cod that people put septic systems in. So we're sort of trying to simulate those. We're doing some soil column work as well as some real-time work with full-scale systems. We're testing 6 alternative drain field products that keeps the lights on and the staff paid. And then we're conducting some basic research on non-proprietary nitrogen removal strategies, which I'll just about tell you now. So the first thing is when we accepted the 208 contribution, let's put it that way, and when we were appealing to DEP for 319 funds, the goal was to take advantage of a number of publicly funded projects across the country. And what you see before here, anything you see here, is I'm just the monkey, because all I'm doing is copying anything that was done around the country, trying to break down those processes and see how appropriate they are to our geographic area. So none of the research that we're working on is original. It's working with the Florida project, which Damon Anderson and Hazen Sawyer has. They have a passive nitrogen removal project down there. There's a project in Washington. I've been working with a professor up at Dalhousie, and as well as one at Waterloo, Canada, University of Waterloo, Dr. Robertson, and then very closely coordinating some of our activities with the understanding and knowledge of the University of Rhode Island folks, Jose Amador and George Loomis, who runs the training center down there. So the goal here was to examine all the elements of those non-proprietary systems, determine how to adjust those design features to see if they'll work in our area, and determine the principles used in these projects will allow us to take advantage of some of their knowledge. Next. The Florida design is where we started. This is basic design as a layered system that sequentially delivers septic tank effluent to an area the distribution area, nitrifies the wastewater, allows it to percolate, then denitrifies it in sort of a layered fashion. Next. And this is what it looks like. I call it like a layer cake because the process is pretty simple. Once you get the water out to the drain field, it's going to nitrify eventually. So the key is how to get it to nitrify in a very shallow soil horizon. Why? Because shallow soil horizon translates to lower cost and ease of installation. So once you get it nitrified, the next problem you have is how to denitrify it. Well, to denitrify it, you need anoxic conditions, no air conditions. You need carbon, and you need a media from which that denitrification can occur. So what they've done there is the top layer there is a drip dispersal system. Then it goes through a nitrifying layer, and then it hits that cellulose or cellulosic material area where it denitrifies because in that cellulose or wood chips, it's a saturated area where there's no oxygen and there's a carbon source. The wood serves as the carbon source. So then it denitrifies. In their design, they then have to get rid of it. I mean, you have to dispose of it after you've treated it. So in some instances, they just put the disposal field right in underneath. So basically, you have a layer cake. You distribute up top, the next layer nitrify, next layer is denitrify, final layer is disposal. Next. Okay, so what we needed to do is break down those component processes and say, what can we use in our area? And the focus really here is how cheap can we make it, how simple can we make it? Because it's real easy to denitrify with a lot of money and expense and complication. There's no problem, anybody can do it. But as Einstein said, the genius is trying to make it simple. So let's go to the water delivery system. Next. The water delivery system in the Florida project is a drip dispersal system. This is a high pressure, very small diameter, and it requires a lot of area. So in order to capture beneath that system, you have to have a pretty large liner to collect beneath the system. And the drip system itself is pretty complicated. So down at the University of Rhode Island, and in Rhode Island, they allow shallow pressure systems, shallow pressure dose systems. They're only 10 inches down, 8 to 10 inches down. And they don't use a complicated high pressure network. They use a less complicated low pressure network. It looks just like what any designer does here for pressure distribution, just happens to be in a very shallow soil layer. So what we decided to do is say, we could probably do it with drip. All our data show that we could do it with drip, but let's try to make it simpler. So what we've designed is really what we're working with now is a very simple shallow pressure dose system. Next. So now, nitrification. This is a real boogaboo. This is a tough part. Nitrifiers are slow growing. They're very finicky for temperature. There's a lot of literature out there that would tell us how they should respond in our area. And in our area, we have one big complication is our wastewater typically does not have enough alkalinity to support full nitrification of all the wastewater nitrogen we give it. We typically have ammonia, if you believe sort of the models, we'd have at least 30 to 40. If you go out in the real world, you might find 50 to 60 or up to 120 total nitrogen, which comes into the soil profile and as ammonium. To nitrify all that, which is a precursor, a necessary precursor to denitrification, you'd need alkalinities up in the 200 to 500 range. We typically are less than 200. So we needed to validate whether we could do it here. In Florida, they don't have a problem. Their alkalinity coming in is 300 plus. Ours is 180. So, next. We also have to figure out temperature. Temperature drives nitrification, which is, again, a precursor of denitrification. So what we did is try to validate through two means. We set up soil columns as well as a pressure distribution system And what we found here is that despite all the theoretical values necessary for alkalinity, and despite the theoretical, gee, everything stops below 50 degrees nitrification, despite that, our data indicate that we can fully nitrify in our area, and we can do it all the way through the winter. You see there the nitrate values which are hugging the horizontal axis. I mean, the TKN or ammonia values which are hugging that axis. Now, normally one would expect to see them bouncing up in the winter because you can't nitrify. But our studies indicate that we're nitrifying all the way through the year, even through last winter, which we had those, what did they call them, polar vortex?
Vortex.
The polar vortexes, or vorti, came down, and yet we still had full nitrification. So what this informs us is that within a very shallow soil profile, within 18 inches, all year, we can possibly nitrify all of our waste. So we can convert all the ammonium out of a septic tank into nitrate, which again is a precursor of denitrification. Next. We also validated this through soil columns. We have 3 different soil types: sand, loamy sand, sandy loam. These are the 3 predominant soil types in our area. These charts, don't have to read them, but what it is up top, it shows that we have been able to nitrify in a very short area. These are 4 feet deep and have very little ammonium left, despite the fact that our alkalinities, theoretically, this shouldn't be happening. Anybody, if you showed them this, would say, oh, well, your alkalinity would have had to match. You would have at least 300 to 400. Our alkalinities are 180, and everything gets nitrified. So again, we validated in our area that we're able to totally nitrify in a shallow soil horizon. Next. So now the next step, denitrification. The biggest bug in denitrifying in a soil profile is usually carbon, because by the time you feed the wastewater to the top, and then it nitrifies the waste in that first area, all of the organic carbon necessary for denitrification is gone. It's all burned up by heterotrophs up at the top. They've all lunched, and what's passing through, if I were to show you 6 inches of soil passage in a good soil at our loading rates and put it on the table in front of you and say that's drinking water, you would not be able to tell the difference. Maybe 24 hours later, but you would not visually be able to tell it from drinking water. All the carbon's gone, all the BOD is pretty much shot. So there's no food left for the denitrifiers. Every project we investigated uses wood chips, wood shavings, or sawdust for denitrification. So under that nitrifying layer, in a saturated condition, they put the wood chips so you get denitrification. Very much like a nitric system, which you've probably heard about ad nauseum. But here it is in a soil profile. Next. So what we did to test this here is very much what they did in Florida. We said, okay, beneath the nitrifying layer, we're going to put 18 inches of saturated sand sawdust mix. That's what we did, 50% sawdust, 50% sand, and we kept it saturated like they could in Florida by containing it in a liner. Just put a liner down there, fill it up with that mix, let the percolate go down through, and then allow it to drain off at the top, very much like a nitric system, because it's really upflowing from the bottom in a nitric system. And in here, you've got a very saturated condition. That's like a slurry of sand and sawdust. And you see here that the squiggly line up top, that's the influent nitrate. The line down the bottom is the nitrate after passing through only 18 inches of this saturated material. Now, we are getting some form of nitrogen in there called TKN, or organic nitrogen, and what we believe is happening is the wood chips themselves, they aren't pure and clean, they have some sap and they have some other things in them. So The bacteria that are denitrifying are also going through a life-death cycle, so they're bleeding off some of that incorporated nitrogen as protein, and it goes down and we're picking it up. But one thing we have noticed that it seems to be decreasing. So we believe that eventually that TKN may go down to nothing. As that thing reaches steady state, I think we won't even see the TKN. But right now it looks like in a saturated condition, we can denitrify in a very shallow soil profile. Next. So we thought, well, if we can do it in a saturated soil profile, what about if we eliminated the sort of the liner piece of it and just laid in sawdust right in under the system?
How thick?
18 inches.
Okay.
But we provided a liner down there, not to contain it, but just to present a capillary fringe area so that it would stay somewhat saturated. This came from conversations with Damon Anderson, because they said, Damon, you told me I didn't have to saturate the soil, and I ran this experiment for 2 weeks and nothing was happening. So I called him up, I said, look, we can't get denitrification without totally saturating it. And he said, well, the sand down here is sugar sand. We were using pretty large granular sand. By the time I had gone through all the iterations and talking to him, one more measurement, the nitrate dropped out of sight. You see, and it's pretty much stayed below 5 with an unsaturated condition. So this promises that perhaps just layering this stuff in under a system might provide adequate denitrification down to those levels. Now, there's a lot, before we go off half-cocked, there's a lot that really has to be proven here. How long will it take? The unsaturated condition worries me a little, because if wood is in an unsaturated condition, it's eventually going to compost because there's air down there. We've taken some measurements on the air within that unsaturated column, and it's at about 6 to 8% oxygen. So apparently that's enough to support denitrification, even though most oxygen inhibits it. But our levels seem to drop, and again, the nitrogen you do see is TKN, it's not nitrate. All the nitrate's gone. So what we're working with now is to see how long will this run? Will it run through cold months? And are there other things we need to be considering, such as the word composting? Next. So the bottom line here is that we're working toward validating 2 separate designs. One would hold a saturated layer of wood chip, sawdust sand mix underneath a standard leach field at a very narrow soil horizon. And then the problem there is, as you see down below, you cover 8 to 10 inches, you nitrify in 18 inches, you denitrify in 18 inches. But now, since you've contained those wood chips and saturate them, you've got to get rid of the effluent after that. So you would put your disposal right in under that, just like the layer cake, just like the first layer cake. The optimal, of course, the absolute easiest thing that we would hope we could validate is cover 8 to 10 inches, 18 inches of nitrification, 18 inches of denitrify, wazoo, it just goes right beneath that. So that would be a grossly simpler design. However, there are a number of components of this really have to be validated. Can we run it all the way through the winter? We know we can nitrify all the way through the winter. We don't know whether we can denitrify. How long will the wood chips last? Are they in unsaturated condition going to burn up quicker? How quick will they burn up? Are there any byproducts that we're worried about that we should be concerned about? We don't know yet. So those are things we're working on now. Next. So essentially this is what it would look like. You have a pressure distribution network, very narrow soil horizon, 4 inches high at the most, 8 inches of cover over it. You'd have a nitrifying layer. Then you'd create somewhat like a bathtub of this sand sawdust mix. so that all of your percolate from your nitrifying layer has to pass through it. Next. So, remaining questions. Design for the final disposal. Shallow profile systems would be the best, and we're looking at a couple. Some are non-proprietary, some are proprietary. We happen to use a proprietary one simply because it's so easy to roll out and use. The unsaturated design is used. Are we going to be composting the wood? How long will it last? And if saturated sawdust mix is used, will it eventually clog the system in an unrealistic time frame? Because we know that when you start composting, or when you start eating things up anaerobically, they create exogenous polymeric substances, or black mayonnaise, or goop, whatever you want to call it. So that's going to have to be discharged to your leach field, which is underneath it, which is also going to be restricted airflow because you've got a layer cake on top of it. So there are design things we can do to get around that. They should be simple. We don't know. We have to work on that. So that's basically the denitrification project. Now, the next couple of slides are real quick, and they talk about the eco-toilet project, and then we can
George,
go
can
on.
I ask you 2 questions? before
Sure.
we go on? What is the treatment footprint for, say, typical flow from a 4-bedroom house?
That's a good question. The typical footprint would be no bigger than a Tidal V system if you use sand.
The tank or the leach field?
The leach field. The tank is the same. The tank is a septic
Right,
tank
okay.
plus a pump chamber. There'd be a pump chamber. You cannot do this by gravity. The whole thing about delivering that to many of the largest soil profile, largest soil surfaces area that you can relies on pressure distribution. So it's a low pressure pump, 3rd horsepower Myers pump or whatever.
Does it run all the time?
No, it would only.
Yeah.
In fact, as I was discussing this with some of my colleagues today, in a normal household, you would probably want it to really pile up a bunch before you jack that out and let it go through the system. You would, at the most, you'd probably want to do it 4 times a day, dose 4 times a day, which is Tidal V. Tidal V now says you should dose at least 4 times a day.
If you used powdered charcoal or something, which isn't too expensive, would that avoid the compost problem?
We don't know. It's a good question. We don't know whether that powdered charcoal would be a carbon source that would be available. Again,
You'd have to test it.
Yeah.
we'd have to test it. And our first test would probably be column work.
Do you think you could revive your wood chips with injecting some liquid vegetable oil or something from time to time?
Well, if the wood chips held their substance, and if the wood chips could get some carbon source that would all climb onto them and stay there for a while, I suppose it's possible. Of course, anything in that realm is possible. But if the life of the wood chips is, say, 20 years, again, this is a fairly shallow soil profile. So this is probably a shallower profile than most Tidal V systems. Most Tidal V systems go down at least a foot, 1.5 feet, strip everything out because they can't use it. Then they get into the sand. So now they get from the top of the sand down to their base is usually 2 feet because it's 2 foot effective that you can use under the code for minimum footprint. So really, it's no worse than a standard Tidal V system.
And the remedy at worst could be put in new sand and charcoal every 20 years.
Yeah.
Dig up the lawn,
Right.
whatever it is.
Dig it up.
And the usual dimensions of a leach field are?
Well, all you'd have to do, I
10
mean,
by
there's
10,
a
15 by
formula, but I would say 600 square feet is a 4-bedroom house.
Okay.
If you are allowed to use sand. Now, we have not validated Tidal V sand yet as being able to nitrify in 18 inches. We know it'll do it in 4 feet because that's what our soil columns are. The system that we used for these experiments was 18 inches soil profile in a loamy sand. So it was what they use around a golf course. We just went to a company and said, give us a 60-40 mix, and we put it in because we felt, and this was my call, and I guess I was wrong about it. maybe not wrong. I'll never admit that. Yeah, I will. The sand column, one thing we talked about was the alkalinity. At the bottom of our sand column, we've nitrified everything, but we've got no alkalinity left, none. So I know that with what I fed that system, 45 to 50, I've completely nitrified, but I've run out of alkalinity. I don't think I could have fed it 60 because I'm out of alkalinity. Now with the loamy sand, the sandy loam, at the bottom of those soil columns, I have alkalinity in the hundreds to 200s. So I know I've got plenty more capacity there. So if I missed on my influent, if I said, oh, they're probably going to give me 50 and they give me 120, I could probably nitrify that. But I can't do it in the sand because I'm right on the edge at 4 feet, right on the edge. The alkalinities are less than 5. Less than 5 won't nitrify anything. So it becomes limiting. So I believe that, and I've already sort of mulled this over with some folks with Title V saying, you know, maybe we ought to specify a wider range of fill that could be used beneath systems. For one thing, that system with the loamy sand and sandy loam, if you had a phosphorus problem, that takes a lot of phosphorus up. It adsorbs a lot of phosphorus. Beneath the system here, the phosphorus numbers of that one that we're using for the nitrified effluent, they're less than 0.5 milligrams per liter. Right. So, eco toilets?
Just wondering.
Yeah, sure.
When might this be ready for
Prime time?
for piloting? Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I simply don't know. I know we have to run it through the winter. I know we have to get some cold weather data on it. And again, this is really, whew, we better validate this because this is like huge. So we're going to be running a number of experiments to see where could we have possibly, where are we possibly misinterpreting what's happening. For instance, the loamy sand, sandy loam. We got that from a company off Cape that makes things for golf courses. How I end up with 200 alkalinity at the bottom of the soil columns, scratch my head on that one. It's either biological, somehow it's creating alkalinity, or it's in that soil. So I was talking to the guys at Extension Service today saying, how can I answer that question whether it's just a chemical change in that soil? The sand, I know, that came from the Cape. It came from one of the pits down in Hyannis. But the other stuff was mixed off Cape. Now, I doubt it contained limestone, but it must have something in it because I'm not even giving it that much alkalinity and getting more out at the bottom end. So there's a big question in my mind, and that has to be sort of chase that rabbit all the way down that hole. So there's a number of component questions that this shows promise. There's no doubt about it. It shows promise. However, there are a lot of things need to be validated about it.
Is it approved for general use in Florida or anywhere else?
No, in Florida it's experimental.
Okay.
So he's working with DOH trying to, in Florida, they can't even use that pressure distribution system, and we can't even in Massachusetts yet. It's going through an approval process, but you can't use it down there. I mean, they've got to use something like DRIP. And DRIP is great, don't get me wrong. 2 types, we've tested them, they're fine. They're just add a layer of complexity, which once you start adding DRIP and then you start adding deeper soil profiles and liners, you're going up into the 20 grand range and you're starting to think, I could add a V8, just put on the pipe.
But couldn't you just also add limestone to the mix, to your sand? And
No, we've looked again at research we've done, and we had somebody add limestone to it, and it did not appear to be efficacious at all. I mean, in the nitrifying layer, you do need limestone. You do need some sort of carbonate, I should say. But we've tried crushed shells. We've tried limestone itself. We've tried marble chips.
you tried slaked lime?
There. No.
That might work. That would be accessible.
Going back to Ron's question about how long till piloting, maybe you thought we needed a precise answer. You think 2 years, 5 years?
Oh, yeah, within 2 years. I mean, some of the things have to be worked through is if the tighter soils up top end up being the most efficient nitrifying layer, we need to start talking to Title V folks and say, how can we work this into the code? Their answers are going to be, well, how consistent can you make it, and how can you prove that it's consistently made?
Right.
So then we have to talk to soils folks who makes the stuff for golf courses, which I'm sure they are fairly consistent. However, they don't need right down to the last percentage of silt or fine material. So we need to work through that issue. So I'd say 2 years, yeah, would be. I mean, would this be ready for a, like, in the backyard pilot? If the system was done redundant to another system that supported it, you know, I think you'd have a much easier way to do it. In other words, somebody said, gee, I just want to try this. I want to throw it in my backyard, pressure dose system, but I'll keep my regular system too, just in case that one just goes south on you. Then that was our approach when we first started IA systems back in '95. We would say to DEP, can we put this in as long as we keep this other system? In fact, we'll put a brand new system in right beside the system we want to try. And if that doesn't work, we'll just turn a little valve and it'll go there. We were able to do that. And, you know, everybody's reasonable. I don't want a homeowner calling them in the middle of the night saying the system won't work, now what do I do? And if the answer is, just turn that little valve in your backyard versus, oh, I think we better get over there with a big excavator. I think the first answer you better have. The second answer is not going to be popular.
You said phosphorus was adhered in the system?
In the finer textured soils, the phosphorus adsorbs to the fine particles, the clays and the silts. And is it sequestered forever? No, but it stays up in the root zone, and it's sort of recycled with the plant. So it's not removed. I mean, there's nitrogen has a gaseous phase, but for phosphorus, there's no free ride. You've either got to move it or sequester it forever.
So
And if you sequester it where you have plants and they're constantly recycling and you enjoy the plants, they're green, they're pretty, then that's fine. But if it starts to go down through the ground, to the groundwater course, and then migrates to a freshwater pond, that's where your problem is. Our sands typically have a lot of iron in them. So for the first year, a phosphorus system, you probably don't need it for the first year. The phosphorus isn't even making it to groundwater because we have iron in our sand. But after that, jugular starts losing the hands to be able to catch the phosphorus, then it's going to go to the groundwater and start migrating.
Then do you need 20 years to find out if the wood chips compost?
I don't know.
Or can
I
you
think what you
figure
could
that
do
ahead of
is
time
take
somehow?
core samples and then look at the degradation and say, okay, this is the second year and we don't see meaningful degradation. Third year, none. Fourth year, none. Fifth year, oh my God, where are they? Fifth year, gee, I can't find anything now. But, you know, there's, can we talk, let's look what happened to Nitrix. Nitrix is a basic technology, a box of wood chips upflow. Now, that you can see, there's no doubt, something's wrong, you just pump those wood chips out, put new ones in. Look how long it's taken him to go through an approval process. I'm not saying that technology good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just watching what it took him to go through that approval process until he had something very visible, something you could see, and something you could pump out if it was a problem. 5, 10 years through an approval process for something you can see? Now, I mean, this is under the ground. You don't see it, so, you know, how do you sample it? All of those things would have to be worked out with people who reason with the Title V and say, what would we have to show you to convince you of X? And then reason out what the sampling plan would look like, reason out what that degradation constant is, and then there would be questions as to, okay, would it be more with higher strength wastewater, or how does that relate? So some of those figures would have to be put together. If I feed 50 nitrate to that column for the last 10 years, but if I fed 20 nitrate to that column, does it last twice as long? Mm-hmm. I doubt it, but there's a relationship there. I don't know, it's probably not linear.
George, what's the experience with the Nitrex? Do we know how long those systems have
I've never seen one degrade to the point where
Where it
it
had to
was
be
time to
replaced.
send it south. And the one in Mashpee's been in there, what, 10 years now?
So,
So, I mean, ideally, something like that. And we will be, by the way, playing with a design like it, where we underdrain a complete shallow drain field, by gravity feed it to a horizontal flow reactor vessel, wood chips, and then come back under that drained leach field with final disposal. That soil horizon would be very similar to this, and you would be able to change the wood out if you thought. Because the key is the nitrification. Even that, if you looked at the nitrix as a product, its weak link is you've got to nitrify everything. And our weak link, theoretically, is the same. We can't do it. Well, by theory, we shouldn't be able to do it in our sandy soil. So I've been talking to Jose Amador, who is a microbial ecologist par excellence, and he says, look, he said, I never believed that whole thing about pH and about alkalinity. He said, there's more going on there, and there's adaptations that occur. And he's seeing the same thing I have. Nitrification occur where theoretically, if you just went on alkalinity and you just went on pH, you'd say, oh, it should be stopped dead, red light, go home, you're done. But it keeps going. I'm sure, John, you might have seen it in some of your reactor vessels when you look at nitrifiers.
so George, you should be able to set up one of those systems with a sampling system
Yes.
so that annually you could go and take a sample and see if you know, in 10 years
Absolutely.
it has had it.
If you use a liner system, remember the liner has to discharge. So there's a pipe that comes up and holds the level of water in the liner. Then it goes back down and underneath to final disposal. Well, a little hole right there, and hold your glass there. You've got that sample as frequently as you want. And then just plug the hole and go away for a year or come back every month if you want.
Jack, you don't have to be below the frost line, because you're not below it, right?
No, no. I mean, drip systems are very rarely below the frost line. And this system we've been running now for the one that is just feeding the nitrified effluent that we can play with, that's been out there for 4 years and it's never frozen. Even with the polar or whatever it was, vortex. That's it. Next. Oh, unless you had other questions on that.
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
Do you think that given the history of what's happened with these wood chip-based systems, that moving forward the regulatory process could go faster because there's history now?
It could, except, you know, when I'm being a pseudo-regulator myself, I look for two things. How are you going to monitor it? And when you do have to do something to it, to rejuvenate it, whatever, how complex is that? So ideally, a box of wood chips. You see it, I guess that's spent, let's get it out of there, put the wood chips in. But when it's beneath a leach field, now down 2 feet, that's a little different. But again, monitoring is going to be key anyhow. I mean, if this would ever be developed in an area that somebody wanted to do for TMDL, you're going to have monitoring because it's trust but verify, and that's really a good strategy in my mind anyhow. So, eco-toilet project, next. Okay, there's 2 systems that have been in for at least a year, and here are the data from a couple of them. It's evident that, I mean, this is a system that started off with 50 to 60 nitrogen, and after the eco-toilet was put in, those are the numbers down below, the 3rd, 4th, right through the 9th, and we even have some other data that came in today, but I didn't want to place it in there. So you see that it will definitely bring some folks down below 10 that start up at 60. And coincidentally, the town of Brewster asked me to comment on they're proposing some phosphorus regs with their Board of Health. And they're looking for systems that can get down to less than 2 phosphorus. And most of our eco-toilet data show that for phosphorus down below 2, they can do it. So this is one out on Lakeshore Drive. It's a eco-toilet, but it has a vacuum flush system with a Phoenix compost toilet. And it looks pretty good. Next. This is another one out by the base, Redlands Road. Same thing. There's 1 person living in this house. There were 2 living in the other. There's 2 living in this one now. And it does look like, you know, their nitrogen will stay below 10. Not consistently below 5, but below 10. Next.
Well, why was the pre-number so high compared to the other previous one?
Got me. You got me.
Well, even more.
But I would say, when you say that number's really high, I would say, no, not really. I mean, if I went to your house, I'll guarantee it'll be 92 to 96. Just looking at you right now. No,
I'm saying if you go back a slide, it's like 50 or 60.
Yes.
And now
They're all different. Which is really
very robust then.
See, mine is 50 to 60 in my house. There was a house in Wellfleet we did for years, 90 to 200. I actually thought he might be grinding bodies up and throwing them in the basement, but
Well, a lot
later
of
investigation proved that
it could
I
be
was wrong.
your correct me if I'm wrong, just the ratio of gray water to toilet effluent, right?
It could be that something like this, because when you look at the water uses here, that doesn't really even tell you the whole story. But if you in your house, if you don't use water, you know, if it's yellow, let it mellow. A lot of people hold that philosophy. I'm one of them.
Well, you know
Then I'd
you
have real
presumably-
concentrated waste.
You presumably know the water use for these two.
Yes, I do. And
And
if
is it
you
less
were
at
to
this
throw
one?
it up, it's not particularly low per person in this house. Next. Okay, urine diverting toilet, we only have one with 4 data points on it. We're getting more as they get approved by that stiff Board of Health we have in town. I don't understand them, but. So here we see the phosphorus is below 10. And it looks to me, if somebody asked me, I would say the nitrogen's about cut in half. I don't think you're going to see it continue to decline like that. The phosphorus is, but remember, urine diverting toilet, the only thing it diverts is the urine. And it also is like the voting booth. Who knows what they do when they go in there? I mean, you try to do the right thing, but, you know, sometimes you might get lazy. Next.
Sometimes you miss.
Yeah, sometimes you miss. Okay, that's it.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's very
Any
good.
questions on the eco toilet? We're continuing to do. We're probably wrapping up on Redlands Road because we've been there enough times now, and probably Lakeshore Drive. And a new cadre of ones are coming in where, you know, it appears to me that this is pretty darn good at phosphorus removal, and nitrogen removal below 10 is probably the norm, but we have some that even with the eco toilet are still at 20 to 30, so they're going in really high, like Davis.
Right.
You know, some of those are higher.
These measurements are made outside the house, but before you get
To the leach field.
To the leach
Right.
field.
Now, in the ideal situation, we get it at the outlet tee. That's absolutely the best place to get a good representative sample.
Yes, I would agree.
But in some of these homes, they've retrofitted their eco toilets with cesspools. So there's 2 cesspools.
Right.
So the best we can do there is to get a clear zone in the cesspool itself. And that's what we do. In some of them, as is the common practice when you uncover a tank for maintenance, You usually do that at the front end of the tank, where the wastewater comes in, because that's where your sludge will build up the highest. So in a few of these, that's the only location we can sample. So we sample from the clear zone again, which represents what's on its way out the quickest. However, ideally, at the tail end would be the best.
Okay.
But we don't have the ideal
Can I ask you a
situation.
question on the first part, on the shallow
Sure.
layer thing? Is the main take-home message that the performance is higher than what I'll call the tank-type systems like Nitrex, or that you think it's less expensive to install?
No, I don't make any statement relative to the performance being better or not. It's just more convenient to observe that thing which you're thinking is doing your denitrifying. You can observe it. It's right there. It's a tank. You can.
Right, but are you saying that these newer shallow systems are better performing?
No, the only thing I'm saying about the shallow distribution systems are that they allow a shallow soil profile, and to nitrify in a shallow soil profile, if you can prove that, if you can say, okay, dead to nuts, that always happens, then that's a huge expense off the nitrifying step. For instance, in a Nitrex, they generally rely on a pre-treatment system to do that, and that's an expense. So they either put a trickling filter ahead of it, but maybe if you had your soil system right in your backyard and your leach field was right underneath that liner, since you've got to install one and the other, that would take that whole pre-treatment process out because it's being done in the soil horizon. So that's what I was saying. That's the only benefit. What we're trying to get is the shallowest soil horizon translates to the lowest cost of installation, lowest cost and ease. But when you were talking about whether wood chips or sawdust layered underneath, I would say the wood chips in a box, of course, are easier to observe and even maintain if I have to maintain
Yeah,
it.
that's what I was getting at. I mean, you can sort of say, oh, shallow is cheaper. But in Falmouth, most of the work would be retrofits. It's not new
Yes.
construction. And it might depend highly on the property whether shallow really is cheaper or whether it's better to have a small footprint. Because a backhoe can easily go down 8 feet.
Right. There is always the statement which goes, no one size fits all. If you got the real estate, then you put in something that's cheaper and easier. If you don't have the real estate, you generally end up compacting it, which means some mechanized device to do your nitrifying for you, which always means more energy, than just feeding it out to the soil profile. And a maintenance issue. A maintenance issue for either trickling filter, BioClear, fast unit, or whatever.
But it's all right there.
Yes, absolutely.
It's more like fixing a washing machine than it is like digging up your whole yard.
Correct. So you have to say, do I dig up my yard at no maintenance or less maintenance to buying a washing machine that is every month going to cost me $30 because I'm aerating my wastewater and I've got to maintain it and have a contract on it and whatever. So yeah, it's no one size fits all. In one instance, you'd say, oh yeah, absolutely cheaper. Put in that compact thing and go to it. In others, you might say, well, you've got a fairly decent sized backyard here. For less money, you might be able to do this and less maintenance. So again, with any IA system, people always ask me, what's the best thing I should get? I said, well, what do you want? And they say, well, what do you mean? I say, do you have a big backyard and do you care about it? Or do you have a very small yard and haven't got any real estate to do something, then this system would work. However, you should know that usually, I mean, general principle is the smaller you make it, the more compact you make it, the more complex you make it, the more energy intensive you make it. That's not like a hard and fast rule, but it's generally a good rule. Because the major expense in wastewater treatment is energy, aeration, aerating your wastewater. You're blowing air into water and hoping that it goes into the water. But think about here. All you're doing is spreading it out over a shallow soil horizon, and you're letting nature take its course. Because thin film movement over surface allows air transfer passively. You're not pumping air into it, you're not taking air and pressurizing it and putting it into water. So really, I mean, and again, I'd like to issue the last caution, which is this stuff is preliminary data. These are preliminary data. And that a lot of things, component pieces, have to be validated. And we were very pleased to be able to have the funds to do that. And DEP supports it through 319, and 28 project through the budget there has supported quite a bit. And it's allowed me, because as you know, I direct a department, but I've never had time to sit down and do a lot of this stuff. So it allowed me to hire somebody to be able to point and say, do this, put these columns up, get the data together, and it's starting to make sense. But all of this is not original. You go read the Florida stuff, you read the Washington stuff, you read the stuff from Waterloo. All of those pieces, all we're doing is picking up the gems and saying, what can we apply in our area? And validating it in our area will take some time, but it's looking promising.
So, if I understand properly what you're saying, in a yard like mine, which I have a really big leach field, because we have, it's 900 and some odd square feet of the leach field, and it spreads all over, but it's pretty deep too. The several feet down, way down.
Right.
Would that be something you could just simply redo the leach field on top?
Oh, absolutely. You wouldn't be that deep. The reason you're that deep is the engineer you hired, and I won't say anything good or bad about him, he said, we want gravity out of your house. Well, gravity requires pitch.
Yeah.
Pitch means
that's
depth.
right. Yeah.
But all of the systems all of the strategy I talked about tonight is pressure dosing, which means I'm not letting this go in one spot. Because a gravity system, I'm sorry, it goes in one spot until that one spot fails, and then gradually it uses the entire leach field, and then it does this oscillation thing, and there's what goes on under the ground is, it's variable. But if you're pressure dosing, you're taking all 900 square feet or whatever it is, and you're hitting all the soil out there with wastewater. You're doing a lot better treatment in a very shallow soil horizon. And on top of that, unless you don't like to cut grass, you're going to have another attribute, which is a beautiful lawn.
Wow.
I don't like lawns, cutting lawns, so I'd put mine under some shallow-rooted plants.
Just, this happens to be partly under a driveway. Does that make a difference? In other words, does it mean that?
Well, most likely, if you pressure dosed and you brought it up into the shallow soil horizon, you might have a smaller footprint. So maybe you'd avoid that corner in your driveway. If you didn't, yeah, you're in deep doo-doo there.
Driveway passes across it in the middle of it, and
yeah, you could.
But it's not.
Is it a paved
It's not a paved driveway. It's just.
But if you only have 4
Get
bedrooms,
it, bring in the backhoe. Throw shell over it afterwards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
and also,
So,
if you only have 4 bedrooms, you don't need 900 square feet.
We have 8 bedrooms.
yeah, he
We have-
needs 900.
Our house is literally. It has,
See, that was the part I knew that you didn't, because you've talked to me before about this. I said, oh, yeah.
We have two houses side by side. One of them summer, one winter, and so.
So really, all of this says is making use of the shallow soil horizons, which typically on Cape Cod, what do? Well, typically on Cape Cod, you dig out all that good stuff on top. You get down to sand where it will really go away, and you say, wazoo, I'm going to use that. Well, that was really not a good strategy. We should have said, okay, it's going to be a little bit bigger up top, but we're not digging to China to get there.
Right.
We're going to use this soil profile, and I absolutely think that we wouldn't have half the phosphorus problems we'd have across the Cape if they adhered to that strategy first. But the other thing we're seeing in the literature, and there's a lot out there's some very good articles talking about the loading rates and how you can adjust those to get better denitrification, even in sandy soil. So we're playing around with all of that, and hopefully we'll have something ready for prime time. We're going to put a fairly full-size system in by winter at the test center, and mini size, bigger than columns, but big enough so we can observe all the processes, the whole layer cake. We're putting a whole layer cake in, and it's about 8 feet long and 4 feet wide. So that's a big layer cake. We'll get the candles out. We'll call you for the party. But for that one, we should be able to see whether we're ready for really prime time. By winter. We'll be putting that in by winter, yes. So that will test two things. One, can we get nitrification going before the snow flies? And the second part is, will it stick all the way through the winter?
Right.
So the soil columns are the absolute worst possible case. They're sticking up in the air 4 feet. So if those nitrify all the way through the winter, one, I'll be surprised, and two, I'll be elated.
George, you haven't tried one seasonally yet. Just for us, set one up, run it for the summer, and turn it off for 8 months.
Well, we've done that with other technologies, but we have not done it with this, no. With like trickling filters, we know they're rather robust. If you turn those, in fact, we worked it so we ran them just weekends to simulate people coming down on weekends. And we know that trickling filters are rather robust like that. The fixed activated sludge or aerated sludge systems, singular or fast, they're not as robust for that. In the summer, they'll pick right up, but during the winter, you do that to them, it's like, there are hiccups all over the place. So, any other questions?
Great.
Thank you for allowing me the time to do this, and please forget everything you heard, because don't want to let that wow, it happened, it's great, we can do it. There's a lot of things need to be validated here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
That's good.
Okay, next on the agenda, update on the Acapesca Peninsula wells. That would be you.
That would be me. I'm passing out a little map. I'll go around this way. We had mentioned at the last meeting that funding had been provided by the Cape Cod Collaborative to put in some monitoring wells and begin to characterize the groundwater regime in the peninsulas, because we know so little at this point. And GHD has been contracted along with a subcontractor to do this work. So we're at the stage now where the actual locations where these first wells will go in have been proposed. They will all be in the rights of way of these roads, and that requires permission of the Board of Selectmen. So it will be on the agenda next Monday under the summary of actions. What has been selected is 2 points on Shorewood Drive and one which is labeled number 1, that is more to the east and very close to the top of what they think is the groundwater mound for this particular peninsula. Monitoring well number 1 will establish not only what the water table is, but will actually go down. It will be a soil boring, and I believe it will go down about 40 feet, so that it will measure, so it will look at soil types and also water quality, as well as looking at water elevations. Numbers 2 and 3 are water table wells, and they will establish what the elevation of the water table is. In very simple physics, if you have 2 points, you can draw a line, but if you need 3 points in order to do a plane, and the plane will tell you the direction of water flow. So that's why there are 3 wells. It is conceivable they might run into a nest of boulders or something, so there was an alternate 1 and 2 selected as well. So that's the update.
These are all town accepted roads.
These are all town accepted roads, that's correct.
How do they know they won't find boulders under number 3?
They don't. But they're hoping that they won't find boulders under 2 and 3. So
This is far from the glacial moraine, right?
oh yes,
There shouldn't be any
this is total outwash plain, Mashpee pitted plain,
Right.
and so there shouldn't be any boulders, but you do have the occasional glacial erratic. So it just made sense, since they were proposing this to the selectmen, that they at least have some alternates depending on what they find in the field.
Could be an old foundation, a dumping pit for
that's
boulders, you know,
That's
anything.
sure.
People might have just
Yep.
dug a hole and buried it.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
That happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, any comments or questions on that?
That's good.
In Virginia, this is USGS is doing this.
No, actually, this is GHD, and the subcontractor is called ET Environmental. And that company has had experience doing groundwater characterization. It's also had experience with installing monitoring wells using a very, I would always call it portable, well drilling rig, so that it's a fairly simple operation.
Is it ET or MT?
You right, I think you're right, it's MT Environmental. I don't know what the letters stand for.
Yeah, I wish he had an easier name.
Yeah, I don't know what the.
JP or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Virginia, just,
Yeah.
you talked a while ago about a USGS well that was going to be put in with multiple
Yes.
ports. That's totally a different thing than this?
It is different in the sense that these do not have multiple ports. But the purpose of establishing where the water table is, at least at a given point, and finding out how much nitrate there was in the groundwater, that purpose is the same, or at least parallel to this.
But that USGS...
And that was done, that was in Mara Vista.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
that was installed. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? All right, item number 3, review of the draft amended TWMP /DRI, agriculture, fertilizer, stormwater, and timeline. This is yet another layer of paperwork that the state requires, in this case, in order to be approved for the 0% loan that the town is anticipating. It had to be done in fairly short notice because we wanted to get it to them by the middle of October, which is the same time the design for the Little Pond sewer is going to be submitted to them. So it's been on a fast track, and in order to meet the timetable, the committee and SIA have been, Virginia and SIA to be exact,
And Ron.
have been working on elements of it because, first of all, they know more about it, and second of all, they could get the work done in a timely way. So we have these 4 elements which were sent around to you all, one on shellfish, one on stormwater, one on fertilizer, and the last one is a timetable. We can kind of, we don't need to sort of edit them word by word, but we can kind of run through them topic by topic and see if anybody has any observations, comments, or questions. They're sort of a summary of what we've been doing here for the last couple of years and what it is likely to mean in terms of nitrogen mitigation as we move into the next couple of years.
The math is probably the most important thing.
Yes, did we?
Yeah, because that's what they're gonna look at, because we'll send them the backup data to that also. Yeah. Or the credits, I should say, you know.
So the shellfish piece is, I know Ron and Sia have done a lot on this. Do you want to walk through it fast? I know I've been watching the backing and forthing for the last couple of weeks, and it's been very educational to me to find how many issues you could find. But somebody want to kind of give a summary of what this says and where it takes us?
Ron, do you want me to do it? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. In general, it was a brief synopsis of how we got the demonstration started, a list of the technical memoranda that were produced as the background research, and then a little bit of what we, as a summary, accomplishments to date of the first 2 years, and some numbers. And then the meat of it is, as Jerry suggested, the math. You know, how many oysters can you grow in a little pond? How big can you grow them to? And how much nitrogen are you going to get out? And that's where it was very useful to collaborate on getting the answer that we have. I think in many ways there are different ways to approach growing shellfish. There's not one right way. There are a bunch of different ways that growers use and the town uses, and the real constraint, the big rock constraint, is we can grow them in there for a year right now. When they start getting close to 2 inches right now, because it's closed permanently, they have to be relayed out. So we cannot do right now oysters to 3 inches. The other constraint is that we have an approved area of 2 acres, and according to Army Corps regulations, we can't use more than 10% of the project area, which in this case is Little Pond, which means that we're constrained to 4.5 acres. So those are some bookmarks, bookends, if you will, in terms of what you can do. And then we went back and forth, and Ron did a ton of research talking to growers about the density in bags, because we're not going to bottom plant. That's the other constraint. We're doing off-bottom cultivation for 1 year. How many oysters would you put in a bag to get to that optimal size of 2 inches? And so the number, the 250 oysters per bag, is what Ron came up with based on interviews with growers for how many oysters they would put in a bag to get to 2 inches by the end of the growing season. The reality is that you could also put way more oysters in, but they wouldn't all get to 2 inches. And if you do the math on that, the kilograms come out about the same. So whether you grow way more small ones or a few 2 inchers, you wind up getting about the same amount of nitrogen. So this was a reasonable number, we thought, to settle on. We'd field verified a couple of different times that 1,200 bags per acre made sense, given that we couldn't tile them in Little Pond. We had to allow passage through, because that was one of the things that conservation, and that 1,200 is packed pretty tight. The 1,200 oysters, bags per acre. So that's where the math came from. And it gives us 4.5, for 4.5 acres, which is this maximum we could possibly do if we got permitted by Conservation Commission, because they were happy with the results of the testing, 90 kilograms a year, a season, 90 kilograms a year. That's what the oysters can do. The removal requirement was 5,000 kilograms a year, just as in all of Little Pond.
Above and beyond what the sewer's going
No,
to
the
take?
sewer
No, this is the
included.
whole,
This is
the whole picture.
So
Fine.
the actual amount that had to come out of Little Pond was 5,000 kilograms.
Okay.
And by this analysis, looking at the real numbers, you could get 90 with oysters.
And this is for 4.5 acres, right?
That's for 4.5
We
acres.
just took it.
The 4.5
Yep.
acres, right. But with all those constraints.
Yeah.
With the constraints.
I just add a few elements, like as George did, that don't run to the, this is what we know now.
Sure.
Basically, based on certain factors, and there are 4 other elements to this that may change that number of 90 significantly, or the significance of that 90 significantly enough. But the main thing is that next summer we plan to do 375 and 500 per bag, just to see what happens, because the gayhead wampanoags have a guideline of 500. But all the growers in this area who have a particular interest, which is high quality product, nice round oyster, whereas our interest is not so much that.
That's right.
We're not so interested in that. So it could be more.
Yeah.
It may not. As Sia pointed out, we don't know how much more nitrogen that may attribute. Second factor there is that all of these nitrogen studies of oysters have been done with nice, squeaky clean oysters. But the oysters, when they're harvested, come out with all kinds of periphyton or gunk on the outside, plus their worms and other things that are scraped off. So when that comes out, that is nitrogen coming out as well. So next summer we also plan to do a study comparing those, maybe in this year.
We're going to do it this year, at the end of this, when we do our testing.
It may not be significant, but it might be important. Another, 2 other important elements are, one is that, and this study is going on this year, probably went out with totally definitive results again, yielding to George's wisdom, is the denitrification study that's being done. Now this year we have also 900 bags out there total in the 2 acres, whereas there should be 2,400 according to our model. So, but we may be able to do some correlation between the 900 to the 2,400. And so that's another element to this. But denitrification could be significant, maybe, we don't know, okay, at this point. Some elements are that it could be 50% more, some are 10 times more, depending, it's hard to know, but somewhere in that range. But, and the other is that in looking at this, again, I've talked about this before a number of times, is that we have a seasonal dynamic in the pond. As far as the health of these ponds is concerned, we're mainly concerned about the summer. We're not, the winter, it's not really a problem because there's no algal growth. And in most of those ponds in the south coast, there's a water turnover rate just based on freshwater inflows of about 1 volume per month. So say starting, if you're at all nautical here, you'll notice that even by now, that the water's gotten very clear. And so a lot of those nutrients may just be dissolved salt through much of the winter. So we may be looking at really what should be considered, if we're looking at aquaculture, a seasonal TMDL, which means that our target is really from like June to September. That means that 60%, say, of the nitrogen of that 5,000 kilograms may actually not be relevant. It may be 2,000 kilograms that need to be removed from a technical standpoint, not from a regulatory standpoint. So if it's 2,000, then we're getting into another realm. If it really is something, we're looking at seasonal things. And when these other factors come in, denitrification, the part on the oysters, whether we can grow more, it may be that we can have a much larger impact. But we wanted to be very conservative with DEP, saying, look, here's what we know, and here's what the case is. So we're going in a very conservative element that's quite certain from all the nitrogen analyses done by the county, although, yeah, by the county and by MBL and others to get these figures. So I think that, again, it's an early stage, but we're just giving them what we know.
Yeah, and you're right, it's very conservative, but,
Yeah.
but that's great. I mean, you want to be conservative.
I just wanted to comment on this idea of loading and seasonality. I've spent a lot of time recently looking at this in another community. And what happens in terms of the loading is that if there are houses that people are living in the watershed, they continue to input nitrogen for whenever they're there. And the total kilograms from the MEP model is based on what is going in to the watershed that's degrading it. That number is then divided artificially by 365 days to get a TMDL, which is a total maximum daily load. We shouldn't be looking at it that Little Pond gets the same number of kilograms every day, because that's not really how the loading works. And the total number that needs to be removed is a total number that needs to be removed. And because the seasonality of Little Pond is so great, you would actually say you needed to remove more than that total maximum daily average in the summer months when 67% of 67% more of the people are there. So that issue, it's really quite. There's two ways of looking at it, and it's not just to say, well, we know we need 5,000 kilograms, and so we only need 4 months of that in the summer. It's just more complex than
And
that.
it's a bigger regulatory issue. It's a statutory issue that EPA and no one in the United States, and there's a lot of scientists that agree with you, have broken the paradigm of a seasonal TMDL. I think, I talked to Cape Cod Commission, they were going to talk to EPA. They understand the scientific basis, But, you still, just like, the other stuff is scientific uncertainty. It may or may not go. This is regulatory definition that when you're ready to change the Clean Water Act or have the Cape Cod Commission or other people say you can have a seasonal TMDL. There's another court case recently that broke it a little bit, but it didn't break it down to you can have a seasonal TMDL.
All right, I agree with you. That's what I said. It is a regulatory thing. It's not. It's more that binds us to a certain thing. But from a technical standpoint. But again, I mean, if we look at this, right, the nitrogen entering the pond is not steady. But if if we're going on this 1 foot, these well studies may help. But if we're going on 1 foot per day as a movement, okay, everything that goes in August is probably that goes in the ground in August. Is probably going to be in the pond by no later than, say, March, and then out.
Well, you have dispersion, right?
Yeah.
No,
All the
what I
different
mean though is
distances.
that you
Different
have your
distances,
heavy load coming in August.
Yeah.
If the house is 200 feet away, it's going to be 200 days later that will enter. So it won't go in August necessarily. The ones right on the edge will go in sooner. I mean, the nitrogen will flow in sooner. So this kind of modeling can be done to see really how it goes. And if we have 67, like in the Little Pond Mara Vista area, we have 67% are seasonal. So 67% of that nitrogen load is really just in those July, August for the most part. And so that will go in depending. Some of it will be in September, some may even be in August. But the thing is that a good bulk of it may actually be much later in the following spring.
But you also have, the legacy pollutants that will always be coming down from the upper watershed.
Yes.
And that will always be there. So I think it's,
All that could be factored in, but the main thing is we have 88% in that area.
well, it has to be factored in. I mean,
Yeah.
Let's see what you're getting at. In a perfect world, if you could stop what was going in August and in July and in June, you wouldn't have to worry about the rest of the year.
No, actually, the August stuff, the stuff you have to worry about is what's going in, let's say, in February.
Right, because it shows up.
Because it shows up in the
in
summer.
August.
Shows
What was
up
it
in
Wait
the
a
summer.
second,
No.
isn't there sufficient variation of distances from the water of houses
Yeah.
that it all cancels and averages out? I mean, the
That's
pond
what-
is
that's
still
what-
seasonal, but
Probably
the
take a year
input
to,
is probably close to uniform.
Well,
Because
except-
it's a buildup for,
Yeah.
exactly.
Except that 67% is not there.
Yeah, but the seasonal is all sprinkled.
And it's
Sprinkles
also
is all over the
It's all sprinkled around.
It's complicated by the hydraulic head. We've had a
Yeah.
summer
Yeah.
with no rain. The water
Yeah,
table's
that
2
was-
feet
yeah,
lower.
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it rains like the deuce and the water table is 3 feet higher.
Yeah.
The hydraulic pressure pushing that out varies like mad. So it's going to be all over the place.
I think this is good news. I mean, we can debate, I think we can debate anything and
Yeah.
it's just gonna,
Well, I
No, I mean,
think
it's
it's
a
good discussion.
Sensitivity analyses can be done
Yeah.
of this type of
Right,
thing, and
right.
it's a standard practice. And we can get, as we get into this, right now we have a number that's divided by 365. It's a very linear thing.
Right.
Yep.
And it's
Completely
see,
arbitrary.
it's good for arithmetic.
Right.
For those that like arithmetic.
Right, regular.
regulars like,
Regular is like,
You probably like some
Very
arithmetic.
true.
right, exactly. When?
I think I just wanted to make the points that were just being made. That
Okay.
it probably, I thought I heard you say that it was higher in the summer because people were here more in the summer, but I don't think that's necessarily
No,
true.
no, I'm just saying
Yeah. It
it's,
varies,
it varies.
Yeah.
It absolutely varies.
so we don't know. We don't know without us measuring it how much is coming in at different times of year, do we? And as you said, it could be different in different years, depending on how much it rains and so forth.
All right, well, so
Yeah.
we get the picture. It's a conservative document. It's a comprehensive and tells,
talk-
every-
and-
tells our story and tells where we think we want to look ahead.
And it does
Right.
include your points.
No, no, it's in there. I mean, everything's in there. It's just
Yeah.
that
It's
all in there.
Yeah, it's all there to give it the global picture.
So just to put a point on it, I understand it, that 90 kilograms per year is assuming all year. I mean, but most of that 90 kilograms will be taken up during the growing season.
All of it.
So,
All of it.
All of it.
well, yeah, all
In
of it.
fact, they'll be hauled out of there after
yeah,
it goes
it's
in.
in the oysters.
And it presumes shellfishing at 4.5 acres. And that is
Right.
a key piece.
Sure.
Because this,
Sure,
they've
yeah.
asked us to look forward. We know we're
Right.
in a demonstration project now, but what comes next? And we know we have Concom steps to go through and Concom concerns.
And right now, we're operating at about, I don't know, 10% of, 15% of that amount.
Right.
Is
Okay.
what the operating is
Okay.
this summer.
Right.
Yeah.
because
So
it's
it will be
whatever.
a significant ramp up, and that's
Yeah.
a significant decision.
But anyway,
Question.
Sure.
I like the report. It's good that it's conservative, but I have this question. I've heard in other public presentations that the sewers were taking out such and such a percent, and that we hope the shellfish would take out the remaining 12%,
Well, it's-
right?
That's not what this is
But
saying.
this is not
This
saying
this
that.
doesn't get you to 12.
It doesn't get you even close.
I think that we hope that the other alternatives will take out the rest of the 12%.
Combined,
And so you don't
everything.
expect DEP to come to
Shellfish,
look at this and
Shellfish
no,
say,
alone?
we've
No.
always talked about it as being
Okay.
a mix of approaches.
Right. And
We'll
here's-
see what, yeah.
and
Yeah,
here-
remember-
here's the next piece, which is fertilizer.
But the other thing to keep in mind before we get into the fertilizer is, our goal is to get a 0% loan.
Right.
We will continue to have to demonstrate and submit reports. So all these fine tuning will come with implementation.
Sure.
The goal is not to confuse folks. It's especially, I won't say who. We want approval to submit this.
Right, absolutely.
And this is why we're doing these pieces?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, because
Because we have to do it now.
that's right, and this is a particular section that the town is much more familiar with than just GHD. So they, for certain sections that we were familiar with, they asked us to draft those, and they will use them, maybe not totally word for word, but I think it's pretty good.
What, did I understand correctly that Little Pond is a targeted wastewater management plan? That
Watershed.
the Little Pond is a targeted plan.
Watershed, that's the
Right
208
now,
terminology.
It is the targeted plan. at the
Right, is
moment.
the targeted plan. So that's why we have to do this for Little
Yeah.
Pond.
Yeah,
Yep,
Okay, that's what I understood.
that's
Yep.
right.
Okay.
that's correct.
History of control of fertilizer and nitrogen in Falmouth. We'll be familiar to this committee.
Yeah.
The section at the back talking about the percent reduction that we're getting credit for will not be familiar, but Sia, you want to lay that one out?
Sure. We wrote a bylaw, and the bylaw passed, and we sent the Division of Marine Environmental Services sent a letter, and thanks to the able-bodied GIS department, we were able to count the actual number of properties that are within 100 feet of Little Pond, and it winds up being 117 properties. And those properties are prohibited from applying any nitrogen fertilizer. And if you look in the MEP report, there's a weighted number. It's the 0.49 kilograms of nitrogen per line. And that takes into consideration, based on a survey that was done, how much fertilizer, the fact that 50% of people don't fertilize, the fact that people who have lawn services typically use more fertilizer because they have greener lawns, et cetera, et cetera. It takes all those factors into account. So we can use the MEP number for the amount of fertilizer per line, multiply it by the 117 and get an actual kilograms that prohibition achieves. And it's a good number, it's 57 or something. Yeah, it's 57 kilograms of nitrogen per year from our fertilizer bylaw just in the area that's prohibited. There are other provisions of that bylaw that apply for our nationwide viewing audience, especially the ones in Falmouth, that apply to every property in the town of Falmouth. And that is prohibitions against fertilizing when grass is dormant. There's a blackout period, and the purpose of that is so that fertilizer is not being put down when it won't be taken up. Impervious surfaces before heavy rainfall, those other requirements are estimated, in fact, by the Cape Cod Commission, working with Barnstable County Cooperative Extension, to reduce the amount of fertilizer going on people's lawns by 20%. So if you do the math out, we wind up looking at about 175 kilograms per year in the Little Pond watershed by our fertilizer bylaw. That coincidentally is the recommended 25% that is in the draft 208 plan for an amount of reduction from fertilizer load to take if a town has an enforceable fertilizer bylaw. And some education to go with it, like a letter to everybody, and some additional things that'll be coming down the road. So that's where the numbers came from for the fertilizer bylaw, or the fertilizer reduction number.
Yeah.
Okay, any comments or questions on that one?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment.
Sure.
if we want to make this work over the years, we'd have to keep at it. We have to, in other words, make people aware of it all the time, again and again and again. It's advertising, just to make people.
Yes, and in fact, I should say, one large landscape company contacted me, or contacted Department of Environmental Services, who then contacted me, and I contacted Jerry, and they asked for a list, not the names, just the addresses of people who are in the area, because they wanted to cross-reference this with their database of customers so that they could proactively reduce fertilizer use and let their customers know. And they're making this a Cape-wide initiative. They don't want to go piecemeal, town by town. They want the whole Cape to have a Cape lawn standard operating procedure.
Except we're the only town that has a prohibition on the 100 feet.
Orleans has the exact same bylaw. I was
that's right.
researching Orleans' bylaw.
Right, and they got in under the wire too, didn't they?
And they did, with a bylaw that looks surprisingly like Falmouth's bylaw. In fact, their enforcement officer is the zoning enforcement officer. So I know where the bylaw came from.
Did the AG's
That's
office-
wonderful.
Did the AG's office approve theirs?
I
Yes.
think, I thought they got a, didn't they need a special act too? Didn't Dan Wolf do something for them?
Oh, okay, so it's all
So it
buried in those
was
special.
approved through the
Yeah,
legislature.
another special act.
Yeah, great, wonderful.
That's good.
Good news.
All right, stormwater, we looked at and decided that we were not in a position to claim anything for that because we really haven't done anything with that.
I want to ask something. How much stormwater, how much problem of stormwater is there in the Little Pond area? Has that been assessed?
511 kilograms per year.
Yeah.
Good night, George.
Hey, good
Hey,
night.
George,
511 kilograms per year, so it's a
if
good
my
deal.
memory serves me correct,
Yeah, so that's a good deal. If they could cut it in half, then that would make a big
or
difference.
25%.
Yeah,
The problem is
it's
what
hard
you
to
have
do.
to do.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of
Exactly.
little streets with a lot of little runoff
Right.
and a lot of big pipes with a lot of big runoff.
right,
And all of, and it's all really expensive to try to
right.
find swales and set up holding areas and all the rest for this stuff. So so we haven't done any of it.
And nitrogen and stormwater management to actually remove nitrogen, the same principles that George was discussing. You have to have complete nitrification, and then you have to have complete denitrification, and that requires the same kind of regime. You need a unsaturated zone where the nitrifiers can work, and then you need a saturated zone, and then it needs to be able to go someplace. And installing systems like that are not free. They don't self-install, unfortunately. So the cost associated with doing some of that isn't necessarily
How much-
advantageous from a,
And that have more maintenance costs, this stuff could flush out. I don't know, but I know, you got the 100-year storm and then,
Yeah,
so I don't know what the maintenance is to maintain the nitrogen. And that's what we're gonna find out hopefully in one of our studies.
hopefully, yeah.
when the town is going step by step, program by program, and doing little pieces of it, aren't they, every year now? Are they doing it with nitrogen in mind, or are they doing it mainly?
No,
just
I
to-
think they're doing it mainly with stormwater erosion control instead. They do install the infiltration basins where it makes sense.
Okay,
They're not necessarily saying we're gonna put a nitrogen system in.
Yeah.
It could be once there's more information and if there's an area for it.
One thing that relates to this is the application that we have into EPA
right.
to do a location in
Right,
Falmouth.
yes.
And we are now, I'm told, one of 3 that are still under consideration. And we should know in a fairly short time about that. So that'll at least give us a pilot program. And how much it costs and all the rest is not our problem, but it'll be a factor. But that's in the future.
Do permeable pavements help with this issue? I read sometime along
Yeah.
that they're probably more expensive. But if you're thinking long-term, when the town repaves the street, what if the last 100 feet of it, closest to the water, was paved with something more permeable?
University of New Hampshire has a whole test center.
That's
for-
right.
for I think you'll find municipal streets and permeable pavement is a long way off. Zoning bylaws that say you can no longer have asphalt driveways and permeable I have an extension with lattice with grass growing through it. That's
Yes.
expensive. It recharges. There's grass growing through it, so I imagine there's some nitrogen removal.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we couldn't even put permeable pavers in down by the beach because they were afraid the sand was going to clog it.
Clog them up.
Yeah,
To me, I thought that was going to be an ideal area for.
yeah.
That's right, they wouldn't do it because of that, yeah. So it's, it's a way off. Okay, this last piece is sort of a work in progress, because I know the version that was sent out has been changed somewhat already. But you want to, Virginia, walk through the highlights of this as
Sure.
it stands?
The DEP asked for a discussion both of various kinds of alternative technologies that the town was willing to consider, but they also wanted us to project some kind of timeline as to when we would be doing whatever technologies we happen to think were promising. And so I was asked by GHD to sort of compile what I thought would be a logical timeline, and so I'm just going to sort of walk through it. This is starting with the recommended scenario, which uses the existing area to be sewered, but then everything else is one of the alternatives that we've discussed. The fertilizer we really already have implemented, so there's other than the ongoing education that was mentioned a little while ago, it's the credit that we're allowed with that will go forward, and so the timeline continues on forever. The stormwater, I wrote TBD, to be determined, because based on our current knowledge, we really can't honestly say we're entitled to any credit, because we have no particular projects underway, and certainly haven't measured anything. So the final account, which is being called the budget, the nitrogen budget, that GHD will generate, will show that there is nitrogen input from stormwater, but we have no credit or reduction because the town has taken no action, and I can't say when we would, so that's why there are no X's. The aquaculture we touched on. We are allowed for a 2-acre demonstration, and you remember that we had a pre-year, and then we had to have 3 years of actual data to show how it worked. And so those 3 years are 13, 14, and 15. That the end of next year, 2015, we will then clearly assess that information, and the maximum that we could expand it to would be the 4.5 acres that Sia mentioned earlier. And so projecting the maximum, we would have reviewed the data, been to the Conservation Commission, addressed other issues that may have come from the DEP, and hopefully pursued identifying where these 4.5 acres would be and what would be involved in expanding the operation to that level. It's a lot more bags, and it's a major undertaking. The earliest that could happen is 2016, so that's where that.
And we'll have good numbers on the other
Yes.
points that Ron brought up on denitrification and gunk and all that other stuff, so
That's
it may
right.
be that we can get more per acre.
Mm-hmm. Right. This is definitely a work in progress, and we have some interesting avenues to explore. There's a line in here, land use change, on the upper watershed, that sort of bubbled to the surface in the process of doing this work. And that is that the original MEP project study calculations in 2004, 5, and 6 had 2 large inputs which no longer exist. And so we wanted to bring that to the attention of the engineers, and then ultimately it actually is another tool which people haven't really talked about. So they had the golf course on Gifford Street and the discharge from Atria, the assisted living.
Woodbriar.
I'm sorry, it was then called Woodbriar. Thank you very much. So they had those 2 inputs as significant numbers in their overall calculation. The golf course is now entirely conservation land. It's totally regrowing. And so not only is there no nitrogen from the golf course going in, but it's actually uptaking atmospheric nitrogen, and so it actually is really serving a significant environmental benefit. And Woodbriar was purchased by Atria. They were required to put in advanced treatment, and they were required, under the condition of their permit, to move the discharge out of the Little Pond watershed. So it is now into, it's another watershed, but
not this one.
but not this one. And they have gone from 26 milligrams per liter to 13, or less, or 5. That's
Five,
right,
yeah, they
5. That's right.
Mike's
Remember,
done a
this
good
is not
job.
here.
It's an
But-
outstanding,
yes.
it's a cluster system, I mean, it's
Yeah. But they didn't hear,
40,000
so
gallons
it's a
per
win.
It's not this. huh?
Right.
It's
It's
not
100%
a watershed,
removal.
100% removal, right.
So
It was a
we
really
wanted
good
to at
find.
least make everyone who reads this document be aware that actually land use changes. I mean, they could be for the better, or they could be for the worse. But in this particular case, there were two significant things.
And the new watershed isn't one of the ones that we have to take care of.
It's not this one.
Not
We're not worried about
We have to take care of all of them.
Right.
But 5 is great.
Yeah.
You know, that's still another reduction.
Yes, that's a significant reduction. That's a great achievement.
And it's actually 40,000 gallons a day?
They took the old Woodbriar and the new Atria, and the engineers, it's a new system that treats and disinfects both of those facilities, and that's what it
It may be permitted for that. I can't imagine
Yeah,
that
Title
they're
5
anywhere.
flow is
it's,
high.
that's the
Yeah,
title,
they're-
but the actual, so the numbers that we used for this were the MEP water use numbers,
Okay.
Which are real numbers.
which were the real numbers.
Right.
I didn't use flow numbers, I used the real numbers from the MEP report and the credit reduction based on those real water use numbers times what,
for the old wood, for the
the
old
old
wood.
Woodbriar.
yeah.
And it was 4 million something, I want to say gallons per year. It was 4 million gallons per year.
All right,
I can't remember, I'd have to,
That was just
That was
Woodbriar,
yesterday.
that was just Woodbriar alone.
right.
all right.
So marching on through our list here, the next one, obviously, one of the things we can do is innovative alternative systems. I started the X in 2020, and here is the reason why. It is going back up to the top to the sewer. It is going to take us until 2017 to not only have constructed the system, but get everybody hooked up. Even the monitoring that will go on in 2017 might not actually be seeing the picture of everybody on the sewer. But 2018 certainly will be, and then 2019. And so by 2020, we should have some idea of whether we're actually heading towards the TMDL, meeting the TMDL, or not. And so 2020 sort of becomes a pivotal year where it may be necessary to begin to look at additional efforts to meet the Little Pond TMDL. And they can be IA systems, or they can be the inlet widening. So 2020 becomes a significant milestone ahead of us.
Is the 602 there at the bottom, is that at current load?
We were trying to look at what the impact of just doubling the inlet from 10 feet to 20 feet
Oh,
would be.
that's actually what, oh, that's what.
And that's from the
Oh, that's from the
MEP
inlet
report,
widening,
and I
okay.
really have,
Yeah.
she is our number person. So we were trying to calculate what was the impact of that, so that it's just sort of floating out there
We
as,
haven't talked about it yet, so let's.
no.
And GHG's going to validate that.
That's
They're
right.
I think it's future flow, because
And it
it
includes
needs
future.
build out, I'm sorry.
That's correct.
I think this is build out, but,
Right.
you know.
And the last I heard was that they believed that they concurred with
Okay, but
what CSM.
I just noticed that 618 kilograms is what we need in addition to the sewer, and I was wondering whether that had any...
And
Coincidentally.
that's an excellent point, because basically it says the town has choices. They could just do inlet widening.
Yeah.
Or they could start an IA program as well, so on. So by 2020, we will know a lot more about
Here's our numbers
shellfish.
guy.
What?
Our numbers
and
guy.
everything
I
else.
just worked it out, 88%,
Yeah.
12%.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, right.
I think that we have to take inlet widening off the table for the time being, because from what you've said, Virginia, where there was a meeting with the residents, and they said that they're afraid of flooding and all these things, and it's a big concern. So I think we can't really go there unless we're gonna think about raising houses, should that flooding issue come up. Because if the town is gonna start raising houses for these increased flood moments. So I think that based on what you've said, and from the whatever meeting, I wasn't there, but is that the people, especially along the shore, are concerned about flooding, increased flooding, for whatever reason.
What do
they're worried about
the
it.
engineers say about that? How much increase would there be in the average water level in the pond if they widened it?
My answer to that is it will have to be looked at carefully.
Yeah.
And we're going to learn a lot when we do Bourne's Pond,
Right,
because we will be looking at it there. So Bourne's Pond is your X's in
Right.
the immediate time frame.
Right.
And so by 2020, it may
Will
be
it?
off the list.
That's why there's nothing till 2020.
That's
'cause
correct.
We
We
won't
don't know.
Yeah.
And I think it's premature to say we're taking anything off the list. Those assumptions, to a lot of people, they're saying, why do you, and I'm not, it's
Right.
another argument. Why are you gonna allow 20 people to dictate what could be,
Right.
hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment?
Right.
And I think John Ramsey has said he doubts it, but the local politics may say, take it off the table, but we're too early to take anything off the table.
It is too early.
And are IA systems in the part of the watershed which is beyond the Little Pond watershed?
Yes,
which is-
we've just walked through that.
Yeah, okay, I
Yeah.
missed that, okay.
Yeah, the answer is we do nothing about that until
Right, yeah, sure,
2020.
until we find out what we need to
Till
do.
we see if we need to do it at all.
See if we need to do it at all.
Anything, right. And there's about 200 of them. Well, at build out, there may be a little bit more, but I think 200 parcels, I think we're saying.
Okay.
So that's the input to GHD on the scenario, I'm sorry, on the timetable for the recommended scenario. Then he wanted also input on the contingency scenario. And the contingency uses only what DEP defines as traditional technologies. And so they have a stated list. Fertilizer is on it if you have a bylaw. Stormwater is on it if you have a program. IA systems are on it, but I don't have any particular information on their the particular load.
Right.
That was something that GHD would have to calculate. And then you obviously have sewers as another traditional item that would be on that. So that timeline, again, gets us really back to 2020 or beyond.
Right.
And it depends a lot more on the input from the engineers.
Mhm.
So that's
Good work.
the summary of our input. Can I talk about next steps if there's any questions? Okay. So the next steps are that GHD is going to incorporate this into the document that will be ready probably by next Tuesday. It'll be distributed to all of our committee and to the selectmen. And then the following Monday, which is
29.
September 29th, we will hold a special meeting in the selectmen's office, or meeting room, just to review the whole document. Just as we've done with the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. Remember, we went through it section by section. This document will be much shorter, probably 30 pages if you don't count the appendices and so on. But it'll have that kind of public review. The selectmen will be invited, or have already been invited, to attend. It's not their meeting, it's Eric's meeting to run, but they will be there to be able to see and hear questions, because the following Monday, which is October 6th, they will need to vote the document in order to make the October 15th deadline for the SRF. That's when we sort of back mapped the whole process. That's how those dates fell out.
Mhm.
The 29th is not a normal meeting night for the selectmen. They meet every other Monday, so their room is available.
And it's not a normal meeting night for us, but they specially requested us to do this in order to have done it in time for them to do it the next week.
Right.
So I think probably our first meeting in October may be not happening if we're going to meet on the
29th.
29th.
Do we have a time for that?
7, I think we decided.
Yes. 7 o'clock.
29th?
29th,
Monday the
And
29th.
it won't be here, remember, it's going to be
Right.
in the Selectmen's Conference Room.
At what time?
7.
Probably so. And I'd like to reiterate, the issue is to try to simplify and clarify what we're doing so we can get selectmen approval, not to get into the weeds of the plus and minuses, because there are weeds on a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And the selectmen primarily have a lot of information to digest. And, it's really not, I don't think the time to get into, some of the discussion we had here. It's good for the committee members, but,
That's why we had it here.
yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that we can vet.
I mean, if there's a fatal flaw someone comes up with, on the basic numbers, but I
Sure.
think the goal is, they want to know how we're going to remove the extra nitrogen.
Yeah.
We have a plan, and we have a timeline, and we know that there'll be adaptive management changes.
Right. And the other key piece is we will have concurrence from the engineers that with this group of
Yep.
scenarios or that scenario, we will meet the TMDL. And that's what DEP wants to know. They want to know, do you have something that's been thought out as to how you will meet the TMDL for the entire watershed?
So do we need to vote on this evening?
No, you'll vote on the 29th.
On the 29th? Okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
And hopefully on the 29th, you go easy on wordsmithing, because,
Yeah.
I mean, again, if there's
Yeah.
a fatal flaw, but we all have our famous phrases we'd like to throw in, and,
Yeah.
In fact, I'll make the request that I made the last time we had the CWMP. If it's wordsmithing or misspelling
yeah.
or something like that, give it to me as a separate list.
Okay.
And then that way we'll know that, we'll make sure that the engineers know about it. But we don't take up meeting time talking about commas and apostrophes and so on.
I thought the four read very well.
You thought what?
The 4 little documents read very well.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
do.
I do. Yes.
Virginia.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, okay, any other reports of members and staff on any other topics?
I handed out something.
You did.
And I just want to make a prefatory remark. I have copies of that if we need it this evening. I have copies here. I've been working on trying to find out whether there are technical questions about the way in which they're calculating things in the technology matrix, preparatory to after we get those straightened out. After we get all the questions of actually calculating things ironed out, then you can go to questions of what kind of interest rates ought they to be using, and what kind of figures ought they to be using for the different technologies, how much they cost.
You're talking about the commission or us?
Commission,
He's talking about the 208 plan.
I'm talking about the 208
plan,
plans,
that's what I
yes.
thought, okay, fine.
And it's crucial, it seems to me,
Yeah.
for us to make, since we are going to be making some of the, our work is going to provide some of the figures they use, that we ought to have correct figures for the way in which they calculate things. And that's where I'm coming in with this thing. I sent something similar to this. It was a little bit more, it involved more things and made it a little bit more complicated to understand. I sent it to them with we discussed it with the people earlier.
We had a meeting.
We had a meeting. And at that meeting, there was some pushback on this particular question that I've raised today. There's a little bit of pushback saying, we don't know how to deal with this. We're thinking about it. We'll get back to you. They made all of the other corrections that I suggested. There were 4 or 5 corrections. They made all of the other corrections I suggested. They were obvious, and they made them all. They didn't make this. I think it's just as obvious, and it's by far the most important one. Correcting this would, and I don't know why they didn't make it, whether they just haven't looked at it, they haven't had time to go through it, or what. Basically what they're doing is increasing the value of the O&M cost of any technology by 20 times what it would otherwise be, by what they've been doing.
Because they're assuming...
Because they're assuming...
20 years, 5% interest or something?
Well, no, it has nothing to do with the interest rate you use. It has to do with the fact, I mean, it would be the same whatever interest rate you were using. You'd have the same question. And so I'm forgetting the question about the interest rate. It has to do with the fact that they calculated first, correctly, a figure for 1 year's O&M cost divided by 1 year's nitrogen, and they got what is a theoretically correct figure for what it ought to cost. And then they got the present value of 20 years of O&M costs, and they divided that by 1 year. Basically, that's what they did. If you look at the way the equations are set up, that's what they did.
And that includes startup costs, which don't keep coming
No.
every year.
It does.
It has nothing to do with startup
Oh,
costs.
well, tell me what it does have to do with.
It has to do with the fact that O&M costs are, you take 20 years of O&M costs and you divide them by 1 year of nitrogen removal, and you get 20 times the cost for
It should have been
nitrogen
20,
removal.
they should have
Times-
multiplied the nitrogen
The
by
nitrogen
20.
times 20 years, too.
It's
Yeah.
a,
Arithmetic.
Oh, that's-
They
Right.
did multiply it by 20, but then
they
they
would have gotten that word problem wrong on a test.
would have, yes, exactly.
All right,
That's
I
all
get
this
it.
is.
Yeah, that's right. It's,
They-
that-
You're
but-
obviously right, but
Yeah.
so it comes down to, it's a matter of sitting quietly in a room with somebody on the
Yeah.
other side
And we
and
did-
educating.
we did that.
They
We
should,
did
they should
that.
be happy to hear this.
We
I think
did that, and they
Lynn,
didn't.
I honestly think they just missed it. It's version 42,
They-
48
Right.
of a technology matrix.
Yeah.
And they did a ton of work.
Yes, they did.
To get
And
where they are.
that's what I hope
And,
this happens,
and,
yeah.
and the cost information, I think a lot of people feel like are not going to be used at a community level. What a community is
Yeah,
going to do is
yeah.
they're going to take the alternative scenarios and come up with a hybrid, and they're going to hand it to an engineering firm for costing information.
Yeah.
They're not going to go with,
Right.
with the Cape Cod Commission tech matrix numbers.
Yeah.
They have to get validated, but I think it would be possible to somehow remind them of this, that they've got to multiply the pounds of nitrogen have to be 20 years.
20 years.
worth.
That's right, yeah.
So if you give me
That's
one of
all right.
those, I can talk to them
Please
the week
do.
when I'm up there.
I think it's
Please do.
easier to say it, you got 2 or 3 pages there?
I got 2
I'm gonna
pages.
say
I
it
just,
in
I just
three
I
worked
think
out.
you could say it in 3
gonna
sentences.
Yeah, I've said in 3 sentences what I've said in these 2 pages. All this does is document.
Well,
All this does is say, here's what you said, here's what you didn't do right, and I
But
actually,
Wayne,
yeah.
I think Jerry's point,
Yeah.
what I interpret, I agree with, that the way you said it verbally right now
Yeah.
was about 10 times clearer than the email.
Well, because it had all the other stuff in
And
it.
also about 1/10 the length.
Yeah, it had all the other stuff in it. It documented exactly what they did first, and then it said this is what's wrong with it. So the last column is the last piece is I told them what they should do at the end to make at least one way of correcting it. Here's the formulas you should use.
Put that at the
When
beginning
you
of it.
said it to us verbally,
Yeah.
it took you 1/10 the length of time
Right.
it took me to read the email.
Right.
We
We
I understood it instantly, but I didn't want to read
We
the
said that to them, and I think CM may be right, that they've just done so many things, they just forgot about that entirely. It's
Well-
possible, that's fine, if that's what they did, that's fine.
when
But
Ronald Reagan was president, he would never read a briefing paper that was
Right.
more than a page.
That's
And
right.
it's good.
Right, the
it's-
staff reads it.
I tried to
We
get
have that
the,
in EPA, if you can't get it on a page, don't expect any
Yeah.
senior official.
well,
to.
I
Yeah.
can, yeah,
Exactly.
That's
There
correct.
are
Yeah.
a few items in the tech matrix that come out, they need to be modified, just to be more accurate.
This is-
oh, yeah.
And
It's a
this
big
is,
one.
and this is one of them.
Well,
That's a
this
big
is a
one.
technical thing
So
that
you'll
needs to
take
be
care of that.
modified
I
to
will
be
ta-
more
I will
accurate.
take
Okay.
care of it,
I
I'm
think
taking
we-
care of
Great.
the other ones.
Good,
Good.
good, I'm glad, because
Great.
I don't have very much clout with them. You have much more clout than I do,
I'm just there all the time
yeah,
at this point.
yeah. Just mention to them that they didn't make this change, and why didn't they? Yeah,
Oh, shall
they should have known.
review the reports of members and staff and the other reports? How's life on the ocean? You went for 10 days, 2 weeks?
Not on the ocean, I was mountain climbing.
Mountain climbing. Oh,
I get the impression you were on the ocean, too.
Usually that's where I am.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. Any other? How's life in the ER?
Oh, I'm okay,
PT, live with PT.
all right.
All right. And Steve's among the
Yeah, we're-
disabled.
disabled is,
Not
yeah.
recovering.
Yeah,
Recovering.
good.
Good. All right. Any further business to come before the committee? If not, everyone knows the new date, 29th, 7 p.m., Selectmen's Conference Room for the next meeting.
Mhm.
So there won't be a meeting on the 2nd, right?
Probably not.
Probably
What are the
not.
next, can we do
I
the
can't-
next
I can't
couple
be on the
meetings?
second,
Yeah.
Just to
Oh,
put it
you
in our
can't, well,
calendar?
that's the thing, man. Yeah. Yeah, if something comes up, we can probably deal with it on the 29th.
Right, after we do
And
the,
then what's the next one after that?
it would be the regular third
Third, that would be.
16th.
Thursday of the
16th.
16th.
Oh, October has 3.
16th.
Okay, so
Yeah, are we going to
still-
have one on the 30th?
That's Halloween, what do you think?
Well, let's see,
Thursday.
let's see if we need it.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
see if we need.
okay,
Okay.
All right,
okay.
motion to adjourn
Oh,
by somebody?
wait.
Oh, oh.
As far as the
Oh, the minutes.
minutes,
Oh, I'm sorry, all right, we have problems.
welcome back.
Welcome back.
Sorry for leaving you guys.
The minutes had many issues, because to be fair, we got somebody who was not familiar with us and didn't get it all quite right. I've marked up a sheet, everyone else probably has their own corrections and additions. What do you want to do?
Oh, it's up to you.
If you all just give them to me or email them to me, I can just.
Could you fix it up and bring a revised version for us? That would be great.
Okay.
Can anybody want to do that? Email to her,
Okay.
any changes? I'll give you this right now. So that we can,
I couldn't find them today. Who sent the?
she sent them to me and I sent them to everybody else about 3 days ago.
I somehow couldn't
I
track
have
them
them,
down
yeah,
today.
somewhere.
When I realized that
You weren't here.
I wasn't here, but I was,
So,
I wanted to read them
I
anyway,
think I sent
just
you
to
an
see what I
email,
missed.
Eric, with some,
in these minutes you were.
yeah, I sent you an email,
Yeah,
but then I deleted it.
right. Well, if you want to try again.
Oh, okay, 'cause you deleted it too, all right.
So,
Yeah, at that point.
Did
I
you
was looking
delete
at
it from the
this
delete box?
Yeah.
Oh,
and- Right, so the,
so no action on the minutes,
no
just
action on the minutes till
Okay.
next time around.
next time.
All right, a motion to adjourn by somebody?
I'm.
Win,
I-
thank you. Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed?
Since Matt isn't here,
No,
You
he
can make your Roosevelt.
hasn't been here for quite a while.